All right, today we're going to discuss a bit of if statements. To be more specific, we've done if statements already, if you've made it to this video. We're actually going to talk about nested and compound if statements. An if statement is a statement that allows me to make a choice in a program. So let's see here, let's make a new file here real quick. Nested compound. There we go. Now, whenever we have variables or anything like that, I mean, if something is greater than this, if something is not that, if something is true, we can make a choice as to whether to do certain things. A good example would be, if a program asks you if you're male or female, maybe it has specific questions depending on which answer you choose. In that case, well, if they choose male, well, here's a whole list of questions that are going to pop up just for that answer. If you choose female, then here's a list of questions, for that answer, that sort of thing. In a game, it'd be the same way. If you choose male, well, then you have access to the male model things when you're creating your character or something like that. If you choose this particular class, then we have access to, whatever abilities or something we can add there. Now, sometimes you have to ask more than one question at a time, or more than one thing has to be true in order for something to happen. If I'm opening a door, maybe I need a key. Well, if you have the key, the door opens, right? But maybe there's more than one condition to get through the door. Maybe you have to have the key and you have to have done something, like cleared some event or something like that, in order to open it. Talk to a guard or something. But there's more than one condition. Now, if I just make a simple variable, say A equals 5, B equals, I'll just say 5 again. Now I can just say, if A equals B, like this, I'm going to print. A is definitely B. Like that. And if I run this, this should print A is definitely B, right? Because that's true. A is equal to B. Now, I could come over here and say else, in this case, print A is not B, in this particular case. Run. Oh no, malfunctioned my thing here. Oops. Missing my, there we go. All right, run again. There. Now if I change one of these numbers, 7, it's going to print the else, right? But maybe, just maybe, there is another thing I want to check inside of this. Maybe there's a C, for example. 20 or something. And actually I don't have to have semicolons there. I'm just so used to Java that I put them there by default. Honestly, Python doesn't care if you put a semicolon there or not. So I could put an if inside of an if. Now in order for this to work, I do need to mind my spacing here. If I put it over here, it probably will see it as a separate if, kind of. But I've got this if, so we're going to put it here. I may actually get some broken stuff depending on where I put it. So if C equals, let's say 20. And yeah, I don't have to have the parentheses. There we go. Oop. I'll print a little message. Yo ho ho. Or something to that effect. So if these two are the same, and I'm going to run this and it's going to do my second one because these are different, I'll change it to 5. Now I should get 2 messages. One, A is definitely B, and then it should tell me yo ho ho. So it ran that second one. And of course I can have an else inside this. We could do an if down here as well. Now, what happens if I don't have this lined up correctly? That'll be our next little stomping point here. So let's say I put this over there instead. All right, I'll put this back, whatever. We'll run it. See if it does fine. That seems to do fine, okay. I guess because I have this else, probably if I get rid of that, let's see. Oh, well, we'll still treat these as two separate things. I think I'd still get both those messages, actually. But the difference is I want this inside of that. So it's definitely better to make sure the spacing is correct there. Now let's see. Oh. And this is where it gets grumpy about spacing. It's got to be over. Tab, tab, there we go. So run, there we go. And if I change this to 7, it should run my second little if here. A is not B, yo ho ho, or yo ho ho, ho ho. Let's make that a little longer so we can kind of differentiate them. There we go. And of course, again, I can have another else here if I wanted. Else. Print meh. So if I change this to, well, let's leave it the same first to make sure it runs like it's supposed to. Okay, good. Then I'll change this 20 to a 4 or something, doesn't matter. I should get a meh this time. So this allows me to ask multiple things at once. So in this case, this one's going to be checked first. If it's true, then it will go in here and run this next little bit. And if this is true, it'll run this. In this case, there's no other option here. If that's false, well, then it goes to my else, and it runs this. If that's true, it'll do this. If it's not true, it'll do that one. Now this is what's called nested ifs. So if you want to nested ifs. Now, the other variation of doing basically the same thing is what's called compound if. And we're going to use kind of the same setup, but we're going to use the and to kind of decide this. It's going to be a little bit different, but it's going to do roughly the same thing. So if A equals B, and notice how it changes color there, C equals 20, then I'll just print, you know, A is definitely B, and I'll cap it this time. Print yo ho ho. Well, I gotta put some quotes around that. Yo ho ho. There we go. So now we have our nice little if statement here, and if I run this, I'll get, let's see, A is not B, meh. Now, notice that's not going to run because I changed that to 4, so we'll just reset it. All right, A is not B, yo ho 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 ho, and here, let's see, oh, well, A is not B. Now I got to fix my numbers here. There we go. Now it's 5. And then I crashed because I didn't do something right. It's actually capital C. There we go. I should name my variables better. I'm sorry. But there we go. A is definitely B, yo ho ho. And here's the second. This is the and right here. So both of those are true. It runs this. Now, if one of those is true, obviously what you saw a second ago was it didn't run. Now, I could, of course, go else. And that means if either of those is false, it's going to run this. False. In that case. So if I change any of this thing, that means if that's a 7, if this is this, let's just go if that's a 5, then it's going to go to false. Now, I could change this from an and to an or, meaning only one of these has to be true now. And in this case, see, it ran my first one, didn't run the second one because it's false. This one, the first part is true, the second part is not, so it didn't run that, it ran to the else in that case. Or actually, I'm sorry, since I did an or, it's gonna, if one of these is true, or the other is true, it's going to run that. If I say and, both have to be true. Like this. Now, there's one other keyword you can use, and that's not. And I could just say, you know, basically if this is not A equals B, or something like that. If I can say if not. I think that's the proper way to write that. So if it's not equal to A and B, so in this case, if this is 6, there we go. So if it is not this, I said and, so actually I should probably say, we'll make that 5, and we'll change the not to the second part. All right, there we go. Not. So if A is equal to B, which it is, and not C equals 20, there it is. So I can say if this is not equal to that, or not greater than this, or not less than that, that's what that keyword not is used for. So that's essentially just a quick rundown of nested and compound ifs. You have your and, or, not, as far as the keywords go here. And we can kind of use that kind of interchangeably. Now the difference here is, you know, if it's an and, both have to be true. If it's an or, either one can be true, and it'll run. If you're saying not, then it means basically it's the opposite of what you're writing. A equals B it means if they're the same. If I say not A equals B, that means if they're different. That's essentially the major difference there. So that is nested and compound ifs.